Hey X-Dancers, Anthony and Rose. Today we're covering West Coast swing whips. Now, whips are an important part of West Coast swing. It's definitely one you're going to use a lot. We're going to cover the basic step of the West Coast swing whip and then show you multiple different variations. Now stick around. Even if you think you know how to dance the whips, the one thing I can say is a lot of times what people actually dance in West Coast swing and what they teach sometimes don't match. So what we're going to teach you guys is what you'll actually dance. So stick around. All right, guys, West Coast swing. West Coast swing is one of the most popular of all of the country dances, and definitely one you're going to use a lot. It could be country music, it could be pop, it could be blues, it could be rock. Something you're going to use a lot in a lot of social situations. Now, a lot of people get this confused and they think there's West Coast swing and then there's country West Coast swing. There's just West Coast swing done to country music. Sometimes it's not so good, so maybe that's why they get that confused. So we're gonna break down West Coast swing whips and then show you a lot of different variations. So let's demonstrate it and then we're gonna break it down. All right, so this video is gonna be a little bit longer than some of the things we posted here because we're gonna cover multiple variations of the West Coast swing whip. So first we have the basic West Coast swing whip. Then we're gonna have the West Coast swing whip with an underarm turn. We're also going to have it with an outside turn. And then a West Coast swing whip with a behind the back hand change. And then this cool little variation called a Stalker whip.
Like a stalker.
All right, so now let's break those down. All right, so now we're covering the West Coast swing whip basic, okay? So there's a video here where we cover a lot of the concepts about an 8-count pattern, so be sure to watch that in addition to this. But first, we're just gonna break down the West Coast swing whip basic, okay? So we're gonna start facing each other, and we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, there are 8 counts in a West Coast swing whip pattern, and the first thing you gotta know, she starts over here, she goes to the other side of the slot, and then she comes back. This is the motion while the leaders are going side to side, kind of getting out of her way and leading her one side to the next. Okay, so the first 2 counts, we break all 8-count patterns down into 4 sections of 2 beats of music. So it's 8 counts, but we break it down into 4 sections, so it's really important to understand what is happening in each one of those 2 counts. So for the first 2 counts, I'm gonna initiate her forward as she walks forward as I begin to get out of the slots. Now I'm not stepping directly to the side, I'm still leading her by moving back, but I'm also stepping a little bit so the leaders can kind of step out of the way. Now, from here, there's a lot of different theories on this. The way I normally dance this is I lead her in between counts 1 and 2 as I bring my feet together and I begin to pick her up. So I'm gonna show you the leader's footwork on this. So the leader's gonna step back and at an angle, and then he's gonna bring his feet together and begin to rotate to the right. Okay, now one thing that you'll also see here is the leader stepping back and then they step across, getting out of the slot on count 2. I'm not saying that's wrong, I'm just saying it's not the way we dance it, and I'm gonna explain to you why we do it that way. So the problem is, if I step back and then I cross over, notice that my body's actually starting to move forward. Even if I've rotated my body has started to move back. And then if I step forward and across, my body, my spine is actually moving forward, which means that she's closing the gap much, much faster. It's gonna change the feel of the pattern. So what I normally do is I step back and then I bring my feet together. Now, what she is doing, what Rose is doing here in the basic West Coast swing whip is she's stepping forward and then she's rotating a 1/4 of a turn between counts 1 and 2. Now, some of you learn to turn half a turn. I'm gonna explain to you why we do it the way that we do it, but she's gonna step forward on count 1, and then she has a 1/4 of a turn, which means she's stepping to the side, facing the side wall on count 2, all right? Now, there are some times when people will say you step 1 and then you turn half on count 2. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say about this. There are a lot of really, really great West Coast swing dancers, some of which teach that, some of which are probably even better dancers than we are for sure. But the thing I can say is those people that are telling you that you're turning half, they don't do that. They teach it. There's a lot of people who teach that, but they don't actually dance this. And to test that out, watch videos of people dancing West Coast swing, just the basic West Coast swing whip, and slow it down and watch what their feet are. They don't actually do that. So they teach it, they just don't do it, okay? So we're gonna try to teach you guys what actually is happening, what people actually do. So we're gonna go 1, 2. She's got a 1/4 of a turn, which means her body should be more or less facing the side. So that's section 1. So I've got to get my hand underneath her arm for 1, 2, and I picked her up. Now her motion is going this way, and I'm going to stay off the side of the track as she steps back together, and then I step all the way across as she steps between my feet for count 4. So that's section 2. It is walk, walk, trip, bull step. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we'll show you that again. She's stepping 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so followers, a couple words of caution here. You're going to step forward, and then you're going to step to the sides. You're going to be in the side-to-side position. I see this a lot where people will step back, replace forward, especially with newer dancers. You have to be really careful to go forward, side, back, together, forward. That's really, really important. So if she does back together forward the way that we're asking you to do, then everything will work out smoothly. So she goes 1, 2, back together. She starts moving back towards me and steps between my feet on count 4. However, if she does that little rock step, she's going to be right on top of me too soon. She's going to go rock step, and I'm like, right? And then we look like football players who just scored a touchdown. And yes, that's my wife, people. So, so we really want to try to go 1, 2, back together forward, and that's when she starts coming forward. All right. So, regardless of what you'll hear, we really want her to turn 1/4 of a turn between counts 1 and 2. And then she continues that motion for 3 and I stay out of the slot, and then she starts coming towards me for count 4, okay? So from there, that's section 1 and 2. From there, we have another walk, walk, because again, your whip rhythm is walk, walk, triple step, walk, walk, triple step. So if we go 1, 2, triple step, now we're gonna have a walk, walk. Now, when leading this, leaders, we want to really try to use our body whenever possible. We want to try not to use our hands and arms whenever possible. You are going to have a little bit of what's called a J hook here, which creates her rotation. But from this point, 3 and, when we come across, I don't need this hand anymore. I'm stepping across and I'm using my body to create that movement out. So I'm actually, it's the rotation of my body and where I'm connected behind her back. So we want to go 1, 2, I can actually let go of that hand and just use that hand to actually send her out, okay? So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, and now from here, I'm going to start rotating my body. I'm connected to her here. This actually starts moving her down the slot. So if I'm in this position, this is happening, and then I just rotate my shoulders now that she's in motion, which sends her out.
An important thing for the followers as well is to keep continuing your motion in your center on that rock step, sorry, not that rock step, when you're here on 3 and to fill that space of his hand. I see a lot of followers, they'll stop and they won't fill the space. So then there's no connection and you won't be able to feel him asking you to come back.
Right, so what she's talking about with filling the space, and in West Coast Swing as well as all of your other dances, you have this opposition between compression and leverage. Now compression, to define these things, is where we're leaning into each other. This would be compress, and leverage is where we're leaning away from each other. So you can think of this leaning away or this leverage, kind of like Ring Around the Rosie, where we're leaning away from each other. So we actually start the patterns where we're here, we're leveraged away, she comes towards me. Now from here, she's actually gonna be leaning into that hand. So it's kind of that same where she's got that leverage into that, and so when she comes forward, I'm springing off of that, kind of like releasing the stretch of a rubber band, okay? So you don't get here and stop because you're supposed to. You're trying to get over there. He's just holding you and getting in this leverage type position so that he can then use that to send you back the other way. So we're actually going to be leveraged where we're leaning away from each other. Now we're leveraged here to send it out. Okay, so let's break down sections 1, 2, and 3, and then we'll get to section 4. So we have section 1, that's 1/4 of a turn. Then we have 3 and, she's leveraged, so she's leaning away from me. I take that stretch of that rubber band here, and I use that to send her back out. So let's talk about the leader's footwork up to this point. I'm stepping back and at an angle. I'm stepping together for count 2. I'm staying there for 3 and, now she's stretched. I'm stepping across for count 4. Then I'm bringing my feet together for 5. That's a rotation of my shoulder. I'm stepping back into the slot for 6. And then I'm going to anchor in place, which we're going to talk about. So she actually has a walk, walk, back together, forward. And then she's going to have a side, back, anchor in place. Now this is one point where you can create some contrast. I'll show you another way to do that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. From here, I can actually use my shoulder to actually rotate her all the way around if I'd like. And then she's just gonna step back. Your anchor in place, we usually, for those of you who do other forms of dancing, we like to use a third position anchor. So this is first position when my feet are together. Third position is heel to instep. And now there's a reason for that, and the reason we want to create that at the end of every pattern, because if your foot is slightly back, then you can create that leverage at the end of every pattern. Because if we're here in neutral, then what happens is it's very, very difficult to create the leverage that we need to lead. However, if our foot slightly steps back and it's not too small, we can actually settle into that and use that elasticity to create the next pattern. 6, 7, and 8. And now because we created that leverage, we're ready to go for the next thing. So to recap, the West Coast Swing Whip Basic, we're actually going 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now a couple tips. I know we've got kind of long-winded on this one, but this is the one you've got to know, because everything we're going to do after that point branches off of this one. So you got to get this one right before we move on to the other West Coast Swing Whip variations, okay? So one thing is we don't use this hand other than to initiate her movement. So you saw me do this earlier where I started her motion and then I could just let go of it. So one thing I see beginners do a lot of times, they kind of push her into that next part. So they'll kind of go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then they take that hand and kind of try to push her over there. We actually don't need to do that. It's just, you know, it's not good connection, not good partnership. So we're actually bringing her in, start her rotation. She falls into that hand, and then I use my shoulders to send her back out and then release it. So that is your West Coast Swing Whip Basic, and now we're gonna get into some variations of that. All right, so now we're gonna get into the West Coast Swing Whip with underarm turn. And by the way, if you guys have made it this, that was really long-winded. Covering that West Coast Swing Whip Basic is kind of long, but the reason we cover that so much is because we really want you guys to get that one. And by the way, we post a lot of West Coast Swing, a lot of two-step, a lot of East Coast Swing and cha-cha videos here. And if you've not yet subscribed, there's a little button right down here that says subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell button, and that way you'll know when something awesome has happened. Okay, West Coast Swing Whip with underarm turn. All right, here we go. So the West Coast Swing Whip with underarm turn is just like the basic, except for there was an underarm turn. So there's only 2 counts that are different. So we're not going to reteach the whole pattern, but it's still 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we have this underarm turn before we do our anchor. So really what matters, and by the way, there's a video here that talks about the secrets and everything. If you've not watched that, it's right here. It's going to talk about when the variations happen. The variations of 8-count patterns always happen in the 3rd section. So that's counts 5, 6. So everything 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 7, 8, just exactly the same. So we still have 1, 2, 3, but now when we come across, we're gonna bring that hand up. This signals to her, hey, you're gonna do some stuff, right? So we have to let her know that she's going to do something, and then we let her know that she is doing it. We never let her know that she should have done it. That's not very nice. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and I bring the hand up on 4. Now it's important to note that when my hand comes up, my fingertips are actually up and pointed inwards. Now, if my fingertips are pointed this way, she can actually turn that way. I can't turn her outwards, but if my fingertips are pointed outwards, I can't turn her inwards, but I can turn her outwards. You got that? Said a lot of stuff. All right. So on count 4, we bring the hand up, tilting the fingertips inwards. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now from here, guys, your footwork is still the same. You're gonna start to rotate as you step to the side, but her footwork is still forward. So I haven't turned her yet. All right, so on count 4, I bring the hand up. On count 5, I'm getting out of her way, but allowing her to take one more step forward. So we're actually gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've got the hand up. Now I'm gonna begin to rotate, keeping my hand here without causing her body to rotate. I give her some space on that side. That's count 5. So from here, she's gonna rotate a half a turn between counts 5 and 6. As I step back and across into the slot, that's 6. Then we still have that same 7 and 8 for the anchor. So demonstrate that again. It's 1, 2, 3, and up, step, turn, anchor, and place. Now, she's gonna know that something's happening when that hand comes up. There's no reason to bring that hand up unless she's gonna do some stuff and turn under it. So I don't really believe in signals, but it's just kind of like opening the door. You have to open the door first before, you ask her to walk through it.
It's always nice.
Right? So we're gonna actually go 1, 2, we open the door, she walks through it, and then I turn her and then we did 7 and 8. So the only difference between the West Coast Swing Whip Basic and the West Coast Swing Whip with underarm turn is counts 5, 6, but on count 4, we bring the hand up, let her know she's gonna do this. So that's your West Coast Swing Whip with underarm turn. Next, we're gonna dance the West Coast Swing Whip with outside turn. All right, West Coast Swing Whip with outside turn. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So if you look at that, and you looked at the one that we danced right before that, they're essentially the same. She's just turning the opposite way. So the idea is still the same. We're gonna bring the hand up on count 4. The difference is the direction we're gonna point the fingers. So 1, 2, 3, and we bring the hand up. Now, if you notice from here, my hand is actually pointing outwards. For underarm turn, our hand was pointing inwards because again, she's gonna turn in the direction my fingertips are pointing. So on count 4, we bring the hand up, same time, same place, different direction. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now from here, I'm gonna begin to rotate her for 5 with my body, and then I'm gonna step into the slot as I continue her rotation, and then I can bring the hand down for 5 and 6, okay? Now, I actually find this with a double turn is actually a little bit more comfortable and it looks cool. So if it looks cooler and it's more comfortable and easier to do, like why not do that? But I did want to demonstrate it with a single turn first. So we'll demonstrate the single turn, then we're gonna show you the double turn. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and hand up. I'm gonna begin to rotate the body for 5. I bring it over her head for 6, and then she's gonna finish as I bring the hand down for 7 and 8. Okay, so with a double turn, I just keep the hand up a little bit longer. So I would go 1, 2, 3, and 4. I bring it up, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, one word of caution here, if you are gonna do the double turn, I find it easier, especially with newer followers, to give her a little bit of time to recover, okay? So if you go 5 and 6 and then you're pulling her forward again, like she's not ready yet, so a lot of times what I would do is I would go 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm gonna go hold, and then I can start her into something new. That's a polite thing to do. All right, so really the only difference between the outside and the inside turn obviously is the direction, but it's where the hand points. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got the hand up, my fingertips are pointing outwards. I'm gonna lead this now with my shoulder. I don't just bring the hand over the head, I actually lead it from the hand behind her. That's 5. And then she's already in motion, and now I've gotta keep that circle over her head before I bring it down. So she's actually gonna be rotating through the anchor. Okay, so that is your West Coast Swing Whip with outside turn. And next we're doing the behind the back hand change. All right, West Coast Swing Whip with behind the back hand change. Now here's the secret here, it's gonna look different, but this is exactly the same pattern footwork wise for the leaders and the followers as the outside turn. So we're gonna dance 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so really what we got to focus on is the hands, but everything up to that point, 1, 2, 3, and 4, I just don't bring the hand up. So on an outside turn, I've got this, but if you watch her footwork, it's exactly the same. She's going to be turning a quarter as I begin to do the hand change. We'll talk about that in a second. And then she steps again, and then anchor in place. As well as the other one, there's also a double turn that we can do. So let's actually show this from this position so you can actually see how the hand works. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now from here, we rotate a quarter, both of us, as I hand that hand off behind her back. That's count 5. From count 6, I'm gonna let go of my left hand. In 6, she's still facing down the line of dance or down the slot. And then I switch one more time for 7 and 8. So again, from this position, it is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now 5, 6, 7, and 8. And if you're wondering what her footwork is or what his footwork is, it's exactly the same as the last step that we did with the outside turn. So exactly the same footwork, we're just making a hand change. So the way that I suggest learning this is actually just standing here with your partner. I don't care about the steps. Just bring that hand to its position, hand it off, and then keep that hand down and rotate her out. So that's how you can learn that hand position. But then again, it's just doing it at the right time. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so for a double turn version, you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Still the same here for 5. She has 6, and then I bring the hand up and over for 7 and 8, and we can switch hands back if we want to. So again, the double version is 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so that is your West Coast Swing whip with behind the back hand change. And now we're gonna do the Stalker whip. All right, so now we're doing the West Coast Swing Stalker whip. I know this sounds creepy. This is something that you would definitely do during Halloween. No, I'm teasing. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, walk, walk, triple step, inside turn, anchor in place. You got that? All right, that's it. No, I'm teasing. We're actually break that down for you. So the thing is on count 4, everything is still the same. Things change from this and a basic whip on count 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, still the same thing from a basic whip. Now, normally what happens is we lightly send her out and then we step in. But what's gonna happen in this case, she's in between my feet. I'm gonna rotate all the way around. I am on the left side of the slot. So if you look at that from this angle, I'm all the way across the slot. But when she's forward on her right foot, I'm actually gonna rotate her sharply so that she actually turns all the way around and I stay outside of her. All right, so that's gonna happen on count 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4, now 5. So I'm completely on this side of the slot with her, and that is 6. So I'm walking outside of her. I can actually do that as many times as I want and just walk outside of her, walking her backwards as I step forward. So if we show you that again from this angle, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now 5, 6, walk, walk. All right. From here, we're going to lead a push and go, which is a triple step. We'll talk more about that in a second. So then we can lead that underarm turn and an anchor. Okay. So let's actually show that from this side. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm on this side of the slot. On count 5, I'm actually rotating all the way outside. And then now we're stepping count 6. We can repeat that walking portion as many times as we want, as long as it happens in even numbers. And we're walking outside of her. Now, on this last piece, normally we do an anchor here. An anchor usually ends with her doing an anchor and she's actually stretching away from me. But in this example, what we're actually doing, since we're in this position, is we're leading her to start an anchor as I step, rock, step, and then she's stepping outside of me again. So I'm leading that as in this case, as a 7 and 8, but she has to start moving forward on count 8. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now 5, 6, walk, walk, and then we have a rock, step, go. From here, we're actually going to lead a triple step, bringing the hand down, and then we do a standard anchor. Okay, so let's break that down piece by piece by piece. So we have walk, walk, triple step, outside for walk, 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 and then we lead her away from us to bring her towards us, to lead that inside turn, triple step, and then an anchor in place. And obviously, like I said, we can do that walk, walk as many times as we want. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now walk, 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 walk as many times as we want until it starts becoming weird and we should stop. And then we do our anchor in place. So guys, if you guys have any questions about the stuff that's in this video, or if you need clarification for anything, just for sure leave a comment. If there's anything you guys would like to see, just leave a request down below. We do read that stuff. Like when this video posts, we sit down, oh, well, they got a question, we answer it. We pretty much respond to everything, okay? And so if you guys have any questions or if you want to see anything in particular, just let us know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Now we're going to demonstrate these things to music so you can see what they actually look like, and then we'll see you guys next time.
Won't you let me down easy?